Before screens, before electricity, before the internet, people still lived for stories. In the 1700s, entertainment was slow, rare, and precious. A story was not something you watched, it was something you waited for. Weeks, sometimes months. But imagine something different. Imagine Netflix existing 300 years early. In the port cities of colonial America, New York, Boston, Philadelphia. Instead of glowing screens, there were candlelit rooms. Instead of servers, there were wooden shelves. Netflix did not stream movies, it delivered handwritten episodes, written with ink on thick paper, sealed with wax. Every new chapter traveled by horse, across muddy roads, through forests, over rivers. Inside massive wooden Netflix halls, hundreds of scribes sat at long tables, copying the same story again and again. Ink stained their fingers, and candle smoke filled the air. This was the first content factory. Writers brought their stories to Netflix editors. If approved, their scripts were sent to scribes who created hundreds of copies. Some stories became famous. Entire towns waited for the next episode. Families gathered around candlelight, listening to dramatic adventures, romance, and mystery. Children leaned closer. Merchants forgot their worries, and even soldiers paused to listen. Netflix changed daily life. Taverns became quieter. Homes became theaters. People argued about characters, guessed what would happen next, and rushed to get the latest episode. News traveled through stories. Ideas spread faster than letters, faster than newspapers. Netflix became a new kind of power. Now imagine the advantages. Netflix in the 1700s made stories available to everyone. You no longer needed wealth to enjoy great writing. A farmer in a small village could read the same story as a merchant in a busy port. Education spread. People learned about distant lands, new inventions, and different ways of thinking. Writers gained freedom. They no longer depended on kings or noble families. If people loved their stories, Netflix kept them alive. Fame was no longer reserved for the powerful. Ordinary people could become famous. But this world also had problems. Every episode was copied by hand. Mistakes happened. One scribe changed a word, another skipped a line. Different towns read different versions of the same show. Piracy was everywhere. People secretly copied Netflix scrolls and sold them on the black market. There were no copyright laws. Writers lost control and Netflix lost money. Delivery was slow. If you lived far from a city, your episodes could take weeks. Miss one shipment and the story became confusing. The rich paid for faster horses. The poor waited. Entertainment, like everything else, was unequal. Netflix also held enormous power. If Netflix rejected a story, it vanished. If Netflix canceled a series, it was gone forever. Stories that challenged religion, politics, or powerful leaders could be erased. The platform controlled culture, and culture controls people, even in colonial America. Netflix became more than a company. It became the heart of entertainment. People shaped their days around new episodes. Towns discussed Netflix stories more than real news. And that power was both magical and dangerous. Over time, that power began to reshape everything. Writers stopped writing for truth. They started writing for Netflix. Stories became safer, simpler, and designed only to sell. Risky ideas, dangerous thoughts, and uncomfortable truths slowly disappeared. People no longer talked about politics or real problems. They talked about characters and cliffhangers. Netflix became an escape from reality. And too much escape can become a prison. In some towns, people waited for stories more than they waited for news. A war could be happening, but a new episode felt more important. This made society softer, less aware, less prepared. Powerful leaders noticed this. They realized if Netflix controlled stories, they could control minds. So, they began to influence what Netflix was allowed to publish. Certain topics vanished. Certain voices went silent. Netflix became both entertainment and quiet propaganda. Yet people still loved it, because stories made life feel larger, even when real life was hard. Families still gathered at night around candles to hear the next chapter. Friends still argued over their favorite characters. Children still dreamed because of stories. Netflix had become a part of human identity, and that could never be erased. So, if Netflix existed in the 1700s, it would be powerful, dangerous, and revolutionary, just like it is today. The only difference would be paper instead of screens, horses instead of servers, and candlelight instead of pixels. But the hunger for stories would be exactly the same.